The constable fell in love with me. The night they arrested my father, I stood barefoot on the cold mud outside our house and watched everything. We had left get taken away, and that was the night Constable Aryan Sharma first saw me cry. I did not know then that a man in uniform could carry guilt in his eyes like a wound. I did not know that the same hands that locked the iron door on my father would one day reach across every wall I had ever built around my heart. All I knew in that moment was that I was 23 years old, alone in a village that had already decided our family was cursed, and that no one, not a single soul, was going to stand beside me. But I was wrong about that last part. I just didn't know it yet. My name is Mira. My father, Ramesh, was a man who believed in honesty the way others believe in God, completely, without condition even when it cost him everything. He had filed a complaint against the most powerful landlord in our district, a man named Thakur Balbir Singh, who had been illegally occupying farmland that belonged to the poorest families in our village for over a decade. My father was not a revolutionary. He was just a man who could not sleep knowing that wrong was happening and that he had said nothing. So he spoke, and the powerful, as they always do, made him pay for it. The case was twisted, the witnesses were bought, and within 3 months my father was behind bars on charges, so fabricated they would have been laughable if they weren't destroying our lives. The first call to action, dear friends, if you believe in kindness and in the courage it takes to fight for truth, please like this video right now, because this story is for every person who has ever felt powerless against injustice. Your small gesture means the world. I was left with a crumbling house, a younger brother still in school, and a reputation in the village that felt like a scar people pointed at. I started working at the district government office as a clerk, a job I had taken before all of this happened, but which now became the rope I clung to so we wouldn't drown. Every morning I walked past the police chowki on my way to work. Every morning I kept my eyes down and my steps fast, because the police station was no longer a place of safety in my mind. It was the place that had taken my father. Constable Aryan Sharma was posted at that chowki. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of quietness about him that didn't feel like absence, it felt like depth. I noticed him the way you notice someone who doesn't make noise about existing. He never called out to me, never said anything inappropriate the way some of the other men at the chowki did with their sharp eyes and sharper tongues. He just sometimes looked up from whatever he was doing when I passed, and then looked away. I told myself it meant nothing. I had no room in my life for things that meant nothing. Weeks passed. Then one evening, a file I needed for an urgent case was mistakenly held at the chowki. My supervisor sent me to retrieve it, and I walked in there with my heart pounding so loud I was sure everyone could hear it. The duty officer was dismissive, impatient, waving me toward a back room with bored eyes. I was standing there going through a shelf of folders when I heard a voice behind me, calm, careful, asking if I needed help finding something. It was Aryan. He didn't treat me like I was invisible. He didn't treat me like I was the daughter of a criminal. He just helped me find the file, and when I thanked him, his response was so simple it almost undid me. He said he had heard about my father's case and that he was sorry. Nobody had said sorry to me in months. The word broke something open inside me that I had been holding very, very tightly shut. After that, our paths crossed more often than chance could fully explain. He began stopping by the government office on work-related visits more frequently. He never overstepped, never made me uncomfortable, but there was a gentleness in the way he conducted himself around me that I slowly, helplessly, began to lean toward, the way a plant leans toward the only light in a dim room. He started helping me in ways that were quiet and practical. He connected me with a lawyer who worked pro bono on cases involving false arrests. He brought documents my father's legal team needed, cutting through bureaucratic delays that would have taken weeks. He did all of this without asking for anything, without announcement, without making me feel like I owed him a single breath. My brother Rohit was the first to notice. He was 15 and sharp in the way young boys are when they've grown up watching their families suffer, acutely, painfully observant. He told me one evening that the constable had come to his school that day, not on duty but as a visitor, and had spoken to his teacher about making sure Rohit was given a scholarship, form for a program he qualified for, but nobody had told us about. I sat very still when Rohit told me that. I sat very still because I realized that Aryan had been paying attention not just to me, but to all the small ways our life had unraveled, and he had been quietly, steadily helping to weave it back. I did not fall in love with him the way people fall in movies, can all at once. Like a storm, I fell the way water carves stone, slowly, deeply, in a way that by the time you notice the shape, the stone has already been completely changed. There was an afternoon when I was sitting outside the district court, waiting for a hearing update, and it began to rain without warning, the kind of sudden heavy rain that feels like the sky has been holding it in too long. I had no umbrella, no shelter nearby, and the hearing was still an hour away. I was sitting there getting soaked, too exhausted and defeated to even move, when I felt the rain stop falling on my head. I looked up. Aryan was standing beside me, holding a black umbrella over me, rain dripping off his uniform, his face completely steady. He hadn't covered himself, just me. I looked at him for a long moment and he looked back. And something passed between us that neither of us had words for yet. It was his superior officer who created the first real storm. Word had spread, so the way it always does in small places, that a constable was seen, helping the daughter of an arrested man. There were meetings, warnings, implications that his career was at risk if he continued to involve himself in what was politically a very sensitive case. Aryan told me about it himself one evening, plainly, without drama, the way he told me everything. I told him he had to stop, that I could not carry the weight of his career collapsing, along with everything else in my life. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said something I have replayed in my mind 100 times since, that there was doing the right thing, and then there was doing the convenient thing, and that he had never once in his life been able to convince himself they were the same. My father was released 4 months later. The lawyer Aryan had connected us with found a witness nobody had bothered to look for, an old man who had seen the very moment the landlord's men fabricated evidence, and who had been too frightened to speak until someone sat with him for long enough and patient enough to earn his trust. That someone was Aryan, going beyond everything his duty required of him, driven by something much harder to define than duty. The day my father walked out of those gates, thin and blinking in the afternoon light, I was there with Rohit, and Aryan was there too, standing a little apart in civilian clothes, not wanting to make the moment about himself. My father looked at him for a long time. Then he walked over and took Aryan's hand in both of his and said nothing, because some gratitudes are too large for language. Dear friends, if this story touched something inside you, if it reminded you that goodness still exists, that love can show up wearing a uniform and carrying an umbrella in the rain, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to believe in kindness today, and subscribe so you never miss a story like this one. These stories exist because you watch them, and they matter because you feel them. Before I tell you how it ends, I want to ask you something from the heart. Drop a comment below and tell me. Have you ever had someone show up for you when you least expected it? Someone who asked for nothing and gave everything? Tell me your story. I want to read every single one. Aryan and I were married the following spring. It was a small ceremony, just family. The old witness who had saved my father, and a few colleagues who had stood beside Aryan even when the pressure had been to abandon him. My father walked me to the mandap with both hands, steady and sure, the way he had always been before the world tried to break him. And as I sat beside Aryan, as the fire burned between us and the priest spoke ancient words into the warm evening air, I thought about barefoot girl standing in the mud watching her world fall apart, and how she could never have imagined that the very institution that had hurt her would also send her the man who would heal her. Life is strange and generous and painful and beautiful, all at once, all the time. And sometimes the person who is supposed to be on the other side of a line you've drawn around your heart turns out to be the very reason the line was never meant to last. I do not tell this story to say that love fixes injustice. It does not. Systems must change. Laws must be enforced fairly. The powerful must be held accountable. But I tell it because even inside a broken system, there are people who refuse to let the brokenness become their identity. Aryan was one of them. And that quiet, stubborn, rain-soaked refusal to look away is the most romantic thing I have ever witnessed in my life. Some love stories don't begin with roses. Some begin with a locked door and the courage of one person to find the key.